shall we play a game?
We got Star Wars Unlimited. We got classic Star Wars games. We got old school D&D, independent RPGs, mini painting, Warhammer, of course, tons of other games. But first, we're gonna need some coffee here on Board Barista Productions.
Hey everybody, it's your Board Barista fan, and with me is
Tanya.
And we are here to do retro reviews, a review show where we go through my copious amounts of RPG books, magazines, and other paraphernalia, one thing at a time. And tonight we are doing Dragon Magazine number 317. This is our Exotic Heroes themed issue. I know I sent you the list a little late this week, but did you get a chance to peruse through this one?
A little bit.
All right. So
I finally found a free one because the one I was on said, "Oh, you viewed too many articles now. You have to pay."
Oh yeah. Well,
I'm like, "Oh, lovely."
You can find everything when you're online. So starting off with our first article, I have to sadly say that this was one of the last Up on a Soapboxes by Gary Gygax that we got to have in Dragon Magazine because Gary passed away in 2004. So I don't actually have like none of the issues we've got left to review have any sort of Gary farewell, which is really sad that I missed the farewell issue. But we do get his story tonight for Up on a Soapbox is the barrage balloon. So one of Gary's best friends, they always had like a going back and forth, and this guy of competing. Wait, no, that was the last issue. This one, hang on, let me read the notes. So there's a mage called Merlad who got his hands on a wand of fireball and a pair of boots of levitation, and was using this because like orcs didn't really have a lot of ranged weapons on their basic stat line. They were much more of a melee. Let's hack and slash and bash them. Let's give them a good crumping. So he just kind of floats over these orcs, raining down fireballs, kills a whole warband of orcs doing this. But Gary has there's a few that survived that went to the next one. And he's like coming along this next warband, and you start ready to be like, okay, boots going up in the air, gonna start raining down fireballs. And they see the mage up in the air, about ready to shoot the first fireball. And they're all like, barrage balloon! So they'll drop their axes, swords, whatever they were carrying for melee weapons, grab the crossbows, grab the bows, and just start firing. And of course, mage is up there with a mage's armor class. No concealment, no cover, getting like 100 arrows around, 100 attacks around. Quickly goes, I need to stay back down on the ground.
Yeah.
So, it was definitely the whole thing of like Gary never liked people using the same tactic twice, because usually when they came around to using it the second time, let them use it the first time, mess with them the second time. But if you use it the third time, he definitely had something all set to like, no, I'm going to kill your character. You're being too predictable. That was a good story about, use your powerful tactics sparingly. Don't use everything like your big flashy stuff right off the bat. That was kind of the lesson of that issue. Next article is the Countdown to Eberron, because this is all about exotic races, new, not just playing your human fighter, dwarf, elf, halfling, gnome, half elf type characters out of the PHB. This is where a lot of like today's trend of like, is anybody playing a human? When I sit down to a D&D 5th edition group, I'm like, why is nobody playing like any of like anybody playing an elf, it's like, no, we're all weird stuff. It's like, yeah, this was kind of the starting point of that. This era in 3rd edition, in 3.5. So the Eberron races, we got like the sneak preview before the Eberron campaign setting came out. Doesn't give us any. It gives us some stats for shifters, which are basically when a human and a lycanthrope, were-tiger, were-bear, were-rat, or something like that, have a baby, and then that baby has a baby of their own with another human or something. The were genes get diluted, and you have what's called shifters. So they're like not fully like were creatures. So they probably have like some animalistic traits to them. And the next article is a xenophile. We got 4 new exotic races. I love how D&D loves to get creative with their names when they come up with something for the first time. Adu Jaz. It's a race that was old when the elves were young. They're plant people. Gruars. Gruars. It's the Fey version of the Drow.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Elder Fey. The Elder Drow. You got the Golemoids, which are rock versions of the Warforged. They're made by gnomes. So they're actually like a sentient race of like rock golems.
Yep.
You got the Tikels, which are a lizard folk race. Next article is urban druids. It's a variant for the druid class. They can take the form of urban creatures. So instead of like wild shaping into a bear or a deer or a horse, they'd be like, I'll turn into a horse, or I'll turn into a cat, a house cat, or different stuff like that. Then they also have instead of favored enemies, they have favored cities where they get the favored enemy bonus while they're in the city. They get they have an information network and some urban themed spells. So they don't really have like the whole like create wall of roots and stuff like that. It's more of themed of like eat metal and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see that. They got some awesome urban druid spells.
Oh, yeah.
Did I skip an article?
No, you're in the
Okay.
urban. Wait. No, I don't think you did. I think you're in the right article. Next article is true names and fetishes. So it's rules for using true names and items of power in casting spells and creating magical items. So not that kind of fetish.
I saw the title of that article and I'm like, what the heck?
Nah, fetish is like a mystical item of importance. So you could almost say like the cleric's holy symbol is their fetish. It's their item, their special item. Next article is the Eye of Newt and Toe of Frog. Using power components. Rules for using magical components to pay for the EXP cost of spells. So this has a list of creature body parts and their gold piece value, as well as how much experience points they'll cover for certain spells. It's a nice little extra way to introduce like some parts of the economy into your D&D world if you really want to get crunchy with the whole thing of like, say you got like, if you're getting really inspired by The Witcher, part of the whole thing of like that first episode of the series, he goes, he kills the monster, he harvests the important parts and brings them to the wizards to sell to make his gold.
Well, technically, he brings the whole thing.
He brought the whole thing back because there's multiple parts out of their stuff. They're like, oh yeah, this can still be used. But you can
can't remember the wizard's helper's name.
But you can use that as another way of giving. Like you can give because normally you kill a random monster in the middle of nowhere, they'll have like there's no treasure pile, in the middle. Like an owlbear found out in the wilderness is not going to have like an actual like, oh look, we got its pocketbook because
Yeah.
it's an owl bear. It's not an intelligent creature, but if you're like, ooh, we got the musk gland of an owl bear. Okay, we can use this to make some potent
What can we harvest from skeletons?
bones.
Just bones?
Just bones.
Well, that sucks.
Well, if you need if you need like a bunch of skeleton bone powder, or you want to actually like get enough skeletons to make like a skeleton construct.
Ooh, skeleton construct. Technically, the elf has 3 of those.
I keep forgetting about. At one point, my paladin is just going to go and kill the elf. You are evil. All right. Next up, speaking of bones, we got the body of knowledge. We got a mage prestige class called the Ostromancer, Bone Mage. Able to use their bones, able to alter the bones to move. So they get the ability to move through a 6-inch space.
Dang.
Like basically by like contorting and doing a bunch of like crazy yoga and like softening their bones. They just kind of slurp through.
Ew.
They can also do that where their bones are so malleable they can actually just do the whole thing, like crack their nose, adjust their jaw, and actually change their facial features to match like somebody else's to do a disguised self.
Okay.
They can change their size. They can make themselves taller, shorter, wider. And they can actually grow magical bone spikes to use as weapons. So you get like
they're
spurs.
Wolverine.
Wolverine and there was another one. There was actually one of the mutants where he would actually like grow a spike out of his forearm and like be able to huck them.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember that one's name. I want to call it Spike, but I'm not sure exactly. I don't. No, it was Marrow. Marrow was the one that could do this type of stuff. Had like full control over his bones. Next we also get the Flux Adept, which is a mage that can control their bodily fluids and biochemistry, so they can actually turn their blood acidic or like make healing potions out of their tears and stuff like that.
Okay, so Spike did actually have similarities to Marrow. Could grow bones out.
All right. I think they just made him not be as popular because Spike from Buffy was more popular, and they didn't want to get like sued.
Well, he came after Spike from Buffy.
He's
in X-Men Evolution.
They were trying to cash in on Buffy.
Yeah.
All right. You got one more physical body themed mage is the Cerebrex. It's a mage that's able to enhance their mind and senses, get a bunch of cool like abilities to do like instead of like actually using like location spells, they are like, I'm all aware of it. It's like almost a psionic character, but not quite. We got next article is called Magic's High Notes. We got some magical musical instruments, such as the Shell of Amplification, which is a conch shell that actually causes whatever music is performed near it to be broadcast by PA speakers. We got the Ventriloquist Mouthpiece. You're able to cast ventriloquism as a free action by having that mouthpiece inside your mouth, so you don't have to actually do any sort of like hand gestures or take an actual action to do it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Where can you find that?
Probably have to like talk to the DM and hand them a copy of this this magazine to be like, hey, I want this
6,000 gold pieces.
Yeah, well, you're getting to cast a spell as a free action.
How much is that in platinum?
Divide by 10.
Oh, I still don't have enough.
We got the Chromatic Flute, which is basically like the holophoner from Futurama, where he's like playing the musical instrument and it creates the images.
Okay.
And then we have the Organ of Souls, a church organ that you can actually play to suck people's souls into the organ.
That is. There's no price on it. Huh?
That's because it's like an artifact. It's gonna be like super expensive.
It's 7,000 pounds, and there's no price on it.
Yeah, because it's meant to not be something you buy. It's something that's like in a location. Then you're like, we're gonna cart this off. How do we actually money can we get for this? It's like, who the heck is gonna want to buy this? Next article is Beast of the Sun. We got Central American monsters. Yeah, I'm not gonna try blundering these different names. I'm just gonna go through and tell you what kind of monsters they are. So we got a 300-foot crocodile, which actually inspired a crocodile demigod on my D&D world. Because I was like, oh, a giant crocodile in the middle of the swamp. Yeah. We got a male mischievous earth spirits. We have the tall ancient humanoids that predate humans. I'm all like, I was watching the Y Files while I was reviewing this, and I just had to write Anunnaki because of Hecklefish. I was just like, Anunnaki and lizard people in the same issue. We got elemental air spirits. We have Central American giants, and we have a Mayan version of the hag. So some cool stuff to play around with there. Next article is the Ranger Knight of Ferandi. Basically, if you want to play a ranger on a horse, this is how you play a ranger on a horse. Because normally paladins are the ones that are like, I want to do mounted combat. And the ranger's all like, I'm going to do like tactical SWAT, hiding in the bushes combat. They're like, but Aragorn was a ranger and he rode a horse. And I want to ride a horse. It's like, okay. You got to take a prestige class and you'll get really good at fighting as a ranger on a horse. Next article is the Silicon Sorcerer article, where they would look at a video game that was popular or had recently released around time of publication. So we got some monsters and items and spells from the game Dungeons and Dragons Heroes. Cool one of the spells is Vampiric Drain, which is an area effect that deals 1d6 per 4 caster level. So you max out at like 20th level and deal 5d6 to everything that's within a 10-foot space. And if you cast that, all the damage you deal, you get as bonus HP.
Nice.
Yep. We get Warp Stone, which is a magical item, which is basically like the Hearthstone in World of Warcraft, where you can key it to a certain location and then activate it, and it will teleport you back to the place where you want to be. Which I have, ever since I started playing WoW, I'm like, that's a really cool, but really abusive magical item. Because if you're really struggling, you can just be like, okay, let's activate this. Okay, try not to die. Okay, and I'm teleported back home. So, and for the monster, we get the Ice Golem. It has a cold-based breath weapon attack. It shoots shards of ice. It's Sub-Zero for Mortal Kombat, made purely of ice. Next article is the Face of Faerun. We get 2 cleric options. One's a prestige class, the Battle Guard of Tempest. They're an army-based cleric with new spells such as Easy March and Light and Load. Easy March lets you be able to travel further throughout the day. the lighten load. If you're using the encumbrance rules, it makes it so everybody's feels like they're carrying less gear, so they're not going to be burdened and slowed down or have their AC worsen because they're overloaded. The next one is not a prestige class; it's actually a template to use for creating your basic level 1 cleric. They're the Holy Strategist of the Red Knight. So you got the notes on the Red Knight, which is a goddess of strategy. We get some feats and spells that are relating to tactics. We get the Pike Hedge feat multiplies damage when you set to receive a charge. Analyze opponent gives you knowledge of tactics of its tactics, strengths, and weaknesses. So you can kind of be like, I think I've fought one of these things before. I know what this is. Okay, you guys do this, and we'll kill the monsters. Next article is Out of Thin Air. It's summoning monsters in D&D and the D&D miniatures game. So some notes on how to do this and which monsters that were currently out as minis and what they were like, what minis, what spell they were, what spell would summon what minis and what sets the minis were in. So next article is the Expanding Psionics preview. This is their third time they're previewing new stuff from the Psionics handbook. And they're just basically talking about what happens if you spend more points on a power than it costs. So you could actually like augment it. Like some of the spells would be like, if you spend certain amount of power points above and beyond the base cost, you got these extra abilities. And if you took a feat, you could actually overpower it to you can overchannel with a feat where basically you take some damage to be able to manifest your powers and raise their effectiveness. Also, we get spoilers of some of the powers. We get the Burning Brand, which manifests as the Burrowing Bond. Sorry, my handwriting is a little bad on my O's and U's and A's. So Burrowing Bond, basically you manifest crystal shard handcuffs that actually cut into the wrist of the person you put them on. We get Crystal Storm, sends out a volley of razor sharp crystals. And Energy Lance, you get to fire a blast of either cold, lightning, fire, or psionic energy, which I kept looking at, like all the different stuff. Like when back in the day when me and Josh and our friend Toe and our friend Andrew all played second edition, like it was so easy to make like Dragon Ball Z style heroes by using the psionics abilities. And it really did carry through over into third edition, where it's like, I want to make a guy who's able to do all these crazy, interesting, cool energy attacks and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, you want to play a psionic character, you don't want to play a mage. Next, we have the Wizard Workshop articles. Basically, these are the how to improve your game section of the magazine. First article is the Play is the Thing. The idea was running a non-iconic party, which means you don't have fighter, thief, wizard, cleric. So these were some tips for this is their part 1 tips on a less melee focused party. So if you don't have a lot of fighters or don't have a lot of rangers, the player advice is to summon monsters to actually fight in melee for you. Use magical walls to stay at range, and use the leadership feat so you can actually hire minions to do all your fighting for you. If you are lacking stealth-based characters, you don't have anybody playing like the thief, the rogue, or the ranger, use find trap spells, place ranks in search, open locks, and disable device. You don't have to be the rogue to actually have those skills. Also, they said to invest in a portable ram to deal with locks. And spells like Clairvoyance, Arcane Eye, and Scry to be able to do stealth, scouting ahead. So you're basically like using magic to send in the drone, check out the area. And to invest in boots and cloaks of elven kind for sneaking. I believe in 3rd edition they gave a +10 bonus. Is it a +5 or a +10? Are they stacked? No, one of them was for move silently. The other one was for the boots were for move silently. The cloak was for hide in shadows. So I think it was 10. And again, they also said take the leadership feat. Hire yourself some burglars. You can't have any. Nobody wants to play one. You can just look at the DM and be like, haha, you're playing one. It's like, no. It's like, yeah. And you're going to be like half our level. So the DM character gets to die. For DMs, their advice was to work on balancing the game by accounting for the weaknesses of your players in combat and in skills, and allow players to fudge stuff. One of the examples was like if there's this trap that's like created by an evil necromantic wizard that does necromancy damage, have the cleric be able to go and use a turn undead to like have the trap self-destruct because it's evil. Can't I just protect myself from this evil trap? Which ties into that whole thing of like Josh took away my holy symbol, but he's like got me behind a locked door, and I'm like, that is my holy symbol. I'm a cleric of the god of the jailer. That's my symbol. I'm holding the actual physical thing that my symbol is based off of. Yeah. Yep. Next article, Dungeon Craft is designing wilderness adventures. There's 3 pieces of advice. Wilderness adventures, just before I dive into their advice, was always a big part of D&D. Once we actually there was a board game that they, instead of actually creating rules for the original D&D, they were like, go get this board game and use it. And here's like some supplemental material. I think they published it in like the Strategic Review, which was the magazine before Dragon. They're like, go get this board game, use this board game. This is how you do it. Do all your wilderness outdoor stuff with it. And it was actually that board game used the hex maps. Okay. Where it's like little hexagons. That's where the whole hex crawl adventures for D&D started, was this wilderness adventure game. Then in AD&D, they actually created the wilderness adventure book, but they never did an actual dedicated 3rd edition wilderness adventure guide. Yeah. So 3 pieces of advice. Use narration to cut scenes, to do like cutscenes over the trip. Like if they're going to go wandering through someplace and you roll on the random encounter table that nothing happened, put your narrator cap on as the DM, and you're like, you're walking through a wonderful valley. There's a beautiful waterfall. It's just a nice scenic trip through along the road on the highway. Nothing happens to you. It's like, well, can we investigate the waterfall? You go, you investigate the waterfall. There's nothing. It's a perfectly nice thing. Some of you decide to go for a swim. Others decide to go for a bed. Somebody decides to break out the shaving kit. You guys have a wonderful spa day at the waterfall. Continuing on.
It'd be nice if I could narrate as a DM without player interjection.
It is a big thing because it does take away from a little bit of like the player autonomy, which is why I'm like, you guys are traveling. Which is why I like, you guys travel along. Like you're at the waterfall, you realize there's nothing dangerous here. You just have a waterfall. What are you gonna do? It's like, could I take a shower? You go take a shower in the waterfall. What do you got? Oh, can we play water polo? Yeah, you guys just hang out at a waterfall for the day. What are you doing? Just tell me that. Okay, everything gets done. Sun starts to set. there's a nice little spot over here to make camp. You guys start making camp. You just kind of like let them have a chance, give them something to like play with, and I think you'll get a lot less pushback.
Yeah, I was reading a narrative out of the Dungeon Crawl book I got for the last time I was DM, and I was just trying to get through it because if you were going to join us, it was going to be a different dungeon crawl. It was going to be the Twin Towers. And
all right,
yeah.
For those kind of things, find your most talkative player, the guy who loves to interject. Photocopy or transcribe the read aloud. Hand it to them. And go, hey, can you read this to everybody real quick? I got to set up some stuff for what's going to be going on. Con them into reading the narration, so that way they're not going to interrupt the narration.
Okay.
While you're setting up like for the next encounter. If you've got something written out like that, that works out great. Especially if you ask the most distracted player at the table, like, "Hey man, can you read this out for me while I set this thing out? Because this has got the information you guys need to know." They're like, "Oh yeah." To read it out, you're just setting up the board.
Okay.
They're entertained. They feel like they're the center of attention. It's a lot of the problems is you got to treat them like kids. Like every time I was learning some trick in like my teaching classes, I'm like, okay, I gotta remember to use that next time I'm playing D&D. This person wants to be the center of attention. Let them do like some narration, some stuff. Oh, this person is like always wants to fiddle with a bunch of stuff. Have them like, hey, can you help me set up the stuff? Like
in the middle of the narration, I had to go shut up so I can get through this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my piece of advice is like, no, if they're not, if they're going to talk through it, let them read the narration.
That works.
Next piece of advice, don't forget about the weather. Because not only is that going to be like a factor if it's bad weather, that might force them to stop and raise up the chances of encounters. It might actually swap out to be like, I got to do a different, like I could actually do like a different encounter if it's if a certain weather's happening. It can also make them use up supplies if they and then they have the whole thing of like, you guys are out there and the wind starts coming down and the temperature drops and it's raining and you're starting to get hail. You know, ice is forming on your armor. Everybody start making fortitude checks. That could be an even more deadly encounter than. And then they're like, okay, so now you're soaked through to the bone. You got to take your armor off, build a fire. Now everybody's out of their gear. Monster shows up. ACs are lower. So you get a low-level monster that actually becomes a bit of a threat because nobody's got all that tanky armor on. And it's like, oh, this is going to suck. So Wilderness Adventure, the weather can put your players on the whole thing of like, not prepared for this. It's like, no, you're not. And also to keep in mind that there are going to be magical transportation ways. There's going to be probably like, depending on like how down the magic transportation rabbit hole you want to get, the Eberron campaign setting had magical trains. There's been a bunch of other settings that have Spelljammer, ships in wood, sailing ships in space for Spelljammer, and also for Planescape with the Astral Plane. Or you're going to have an airship in a regular fantasy D&D realm. If they're safely, or they're just going to go teleport. If they've got the power and the resources to safely travel and not have to go through the wilderness, guess what? You're not going to be running wilderness encounters unless it's someplace they have never gotten to before, and they got to take their time to get there. That's going to save you time as a DM to be like, I don't have to worry about all this stuff. They're using magical transportation. It's like, yeah, sure, they're on the magical train that's going like 60 miles an hour through the countryside. What happens when a bunch of orcs decide to be like, we're going to rob the train heist? Then you got all your heroes. They're sitting there in their nice, comfortable thing. Because you're not going to sit on a train wearing full armor again. No, you're gonna like, oh, I'm pack that stuff up. I'll put it in my room. Oh, we're gonna sit here and relax. Yeah. So keep in mind, they can do some magical transportation to get where they need to go. And there's always ways to mess with magical transportation. Such as like a wild magic spell that they're trying to teleport through. Because remember, you're looking at the weather chart.
Yeah. We have actually not interjected weather or transportation outside of how are we gonna bring in players,
I
which is currently barrels.
It just shows up. Well, our DM for the D&D group is like how old?
7.
So everybody's showing up in barrels when they weren't there the last time. It's a kid running the game. I'll go with it.
He did decent this last time.
He's been getting better. He's been staying more involved. He's got potential.
Yeah. He just
Yeah.
he needs to kind of not help us and help us at the same time.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a Monty Hall DM where he's like, I want to give you cool stuff and I want to see cool stuff happen. I don't want you guys to like not succeed. Like,
Well, we've missed out on several monster combats. Come find out because we didn't do certain things. It was like major monster combats, and it's like we went from one door to another door and to another door. We missed out on some major combats.
True. But if we got into like some major like we're good to do like one major, like if he runs a fight, it's like that's the night. Like that's gonna be the thing. If we're doing some exploration and adventuring, that's cool too. I like this more laid back, just kind of like we're just gonna have fun type of game. Because if Josh was running this DM, you know he's all trying to kill us and try to mess with us, and just I'm like,
We'd all be dead.
Yeah, we'd all be dead, or we'd all be like, hey, what do you guys want to play next week? I'll be like, I could run this. Do one of my one shots. And I think because Jackson's played in a bunch of my one shots. Like I think he's modeled that whole like let him have fun and do the crazy cool fun thing from what he's seen from me being a DM. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm like, yeah, let's do the crazy thing. Let's do the crazy cool thing. So he's not. I can help him be a good DM and not have him go down the dark. I can be the Obi-Wan to Josh's Vader.
Yep.
Once your father stepped behind the DM screen, a total dick he became.
Yes, I have called him a straight up asshole. It's like, love you, hun, but you were an asshole tonight.
He made me cry one of the first times we came back.
Seriously?
Remember I had my big emotional breakdown one of the first times we played with me being remote?
Yeah.
I was just like, because I was all frustrated because he wasn't playing. He was like, oh yeah, roll, because his whole ability check, he always keeps going with second edition, try to roll under your stats. And it's like, that completely negates my skill. If I'm rolling a skill check, I'm trying to get a really high number. I'm not trying to get lower than my ability score, man. Learn the rules. And I just, ever since then, he's been like, when I'm like, actually, no, that should be a pass. He's like, okay, I'll listen to him. But as he's so used to second edition, because we played, like I was actually talking with somebody at the gaming store yesterday when I was in playing Star Wars, talking about how it's like, I'm not going to sell my second edition books, because if you look at like the span of my life, like how many years out of my life did I play this game? Third edition and 3.5, I played that for like 6 of the 8 years I was at UMPI. While I was in my undergraduate time. No, I played 7 out of the 8 years I was at UMPI. I played 3 and 3.5. only played 4th edition during my last year there. And so that's like, 7 years of playing the 1 edition of D&D versus like the 2 years before the year I graduated high school. No, wait, I started playing 2nd edition in junior high. So that was 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then like the 2 years it took me to actually go to college. So I played for 8 years of 2nd edition. But for the most part, it was like the last 3 years, my senior year and the 2 years after I graduated high school. Me, Josh, and the guys, we played every single day. So we got the actual physical hours behind the DM screen and with the player's handbook. I'm like, I can't sell 2nd edition. I got all my game time in on that. Everything else was just like 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week. It's like, no, man, 8 hours a day. Like we all get out of work, we hang out, and we play D&D until it's like, yeah, I got to be at work in 8 hours. I need to go home and get some sleep.
I kind of want to do that now, but no one wants to. But nobody has the time.
See, if we could just get the whole video setup all working, so we all had like good webcams like I've got and lighting and everything, and we just decided to stream on Twitch, and we all lived really close together, and somehow made it like an actual business. We could, but
Northern Maine Dungeon Masters. Or dungeon crawlers.
something or other. Even we just did that like a couple nights. Even we could just do something like Critical Role does. I would love to have their setup. But anyways, we're digressing. That's the whole reason why people need to like, share, and subscribe to these videos so we can have them. So I can be like, okay, I got the money. I'm buying the house, putting all the gear in. I'm buying the house that I'm going to live in. I'm buying all the gear I'm putting in Josh's basement. I'm turning his basement into a recording studio. Because that would be the central location where we can all meet up at. Just like, here, Josh, I bought the equipment. Here's the money for the utilities and food bill. All right. Next article. The last article for this magazine is the Sage Advice. This is the monthly FAQ column we talk about all the time during these reviews. Because before we had the internet, because like I was talking about a couple issues ago, they're like, yeah, you can play D&D on Yahoo Messenger. Like, we didn't have the good websites. Like, we're still like 2004. I think we had MySpace.
Yep, MySpace and Facebook was just coming out.
Facebook didn't hit its peak really, at least with my people, until
2009.
Like we were crazy about MySpace till like 05, 06. Like 06 is when everybody was like, screw everything. Everything's going on Facebook. But 04 was still like AIM and Yahoo Messenger and all those things. But
MySpace started in like 2003, but Facebook started 6 months after MySpace.
Well, it didn't have all the features.
Yeah, but then they had that cross-level gaming, the Mafia Wars, the Farmland, Farmville.
Oh, yeah. And then, there was like a Transformers one that I absolutely loved. But anyways, Sage Advice. Before we had internet where we could just go on and get and search for all the questions and find videos on YouTube like this, people had to either call an 800 number or write into a magazine. If you called the 800 number, you got the exact question answered when you wanted to do it. The writing into the magazine, you had to hope that your question was on topic for the month. This month is diving mostly into questions about special materials and sundering. So sundering is a tactic. You can do it. You can try to break someone's weapon. You can try to break someone's armor. I had a human that was raised by dwarves who fought with 2 battle axes, who practiced the way of the sundering, and would just basically rip everybody's armor off. His name was Canis Offender. So he was a can opener, but he was an orphan. Orphander, raised by the dwarves, who had the temperament of a dog. So he was Canis Offender. In order to break a magical weapon or armor that had a magical enchantment, you had to have an equal or greater magical enchantment on your weapon that you're trying to break it with. The funny thing is everybody's kind of like, well, adamantine counts as... It's like, no, adamantine weapons only count as masterwork. So you needed a masterwork weapon to try to break an adamantine weapon. And a magical weapon, a magical steel weapon, could try to break an adamantine weapon. But the problem was adamantium is so freaking hard that it was like you couldn't really do like one blow enough damage to overcome the hardness to actually be able to break something that way. And the other takeaway I took from this was total cover prevents sundering gear other than a tower shield. So if somebody's like turtled up behind their big tower shield, you can't see anything to break other than the shield. So Canis would probably just look at it and go, well, time to break the shield. But yeah, that is all from Dragon Magazine number 317.
Question.
Answer.
Do you have issue 62?
62. Just cross my channel. I'm going to type in the number 62. No, I do not have issue number 62.
Darn.
All right, what's the question? What was so cool about issue 62?
Fairy dragon.
Oh, that got reprinted into the monster manual.
Ooh.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's actually in the... There's stats for it out there. I know it was really popular in 2nd edition. Ended up being like fairy and pseudo dragon ended up being like 2 of the really popular familiar choices for people who wanted to have dragons in 3rd edition.
I can see why.
Oh yeah,
It's cute.
plus they got all those fairy shenanigan enchantment type magic.
Yes. So the website that isn't yelling at me that I need a subscription, I sent you a link to it actually.
All right.
Level 3 Best of the Dragon magazines. And I clicked into it, and that's when I came up with Fairy Dragon. And I was like, "Ooh, this little thing seems neat." Because I'm gonna bring my character Willow back. I'm just gonna build her a bit better. She's gonna have a dragon. So
that, yeah, fairy dragon or pseudo dragon would make her like. What was Willow's class again?
She was a elf rogue, arcane trickster.
What level?
Currently level 0 still, because she was my very first character.
All right. Why don't you?
But her parents left her some. She's adopted into the human village, but her parents left her some ancient items.
See,
So,
I would make her over as being one of the classes that actually does get the animal companion, have the dragon. Especially if it's like sorcerer. Yeah, sorcerer, I believe, is the one that gets the familiar.
Okay.
I may be wrong. I thought it's either the sorcerer or the wizard, but because that shows you how often I play I play like arcane spellcasters.
Yeah, she is
but yeah,
developing more spells though. So
Huh?
it would make she is developing more spells, so it wouldn't make sense she would swap over to the sorcerer.
Yeah. So have her play an arcane caster that gets familiar. Have the fairy or pseudo dragon be the familiar, and do the whole thing of like take a bunch of the spells that work on like thieving and illusion type stuff. And I think that, and possibly if you could somehow get a DM to let you do it, just take like either multi-class or dual class to take like a level of rogue. Just be like level 1 rogue, level 1 sorcerer. So you got like all the cool little like I got all these cool. You got all the cool skills. Do all the stealthy stuff, and you also got like all the magic to help back it up.
Okay.
And then you got like the familiar that can go out and scout ahead and do all that crazy shenanigans for you. It ends up basically being like taking a lot of advice from that whole thing. Like, what do you do when you don't have the rest of the party members and you're all by yourself? Well, you get the hireling, the familiar. You use the magic and the skills, and you just make up for everything else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is, I know, getting late for you, and I am starving because I haven't eaten since 12 o'clock.
Thanks.
So yeah, I'm good for this episode. What about you?
Yeah, totally good. So,
All right.
see y'all next week.
Peace.
Peace.
Hey everybody, thanks for staying till the end of the episode. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at Board Barista Productions. And if you want to support us, Patreon link at the bottom.